Nicholas A. Mitzel said, where do you get your truck boxes for transporting your dogs? I really like them, but couldn't find anything comparable. So the one that we're currently using is a 5-hole slide-in dog box, and it's made by Mountaintop Custom Kennels.
It'll be for sale later this
Yeah,
year
we're planning on maybe getting something different, maybe a trailer. It works great. It's got a fan system, ventilation, insulation, which is also really important, locking dog boxes, but it doesn't always work exactly like we need it to for what we do as well.
Yeah.
So
biggest thing is it's a pretty heavy box, so you actually need a bigger truck than what I have for it to be rocking and rolling right. But and then it limits how much bed space you have
got in the truck.
So what I end up running to is a smidge of lack of space, and need that in combination with the trailer. But Mountaintop Custom Kennels makes great stuff. Ainley makes great stuff. Deerskin makes great stuff, and then Jones would be another company that makes all. We've been in contact with or used all of their brands of products. So, great question. Sal394 on Instagram. At what age should you start to implement steady to wing and shot? This is a great question. And age, which is the number one thing that people ask us about. How old should my dog be here or here or here in all of these different steps of training? It is not about how old your dog should be. It is about how much your dog knows and
how much experience they have.
Yep. So in this specific situation, I am a firm believer that before you move to steady to wing, shot, and fall training, the dog should have experienced wild bird contact and quite a few wild birds. The more the merrier in this situation. They need to, and worst case scenario, a bunch of pen raised birds. Get a bunch of birds killed over them, and then move into this more advanced training.
As well as they're typically more mentally mature. This is an advanced level of training which uses positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. So to have a dog that can actually mentally handle that level of training, usually they need to be a little bit older. So
if you have questions on those 4 types of training that Kat mentioned, throw that in the comments below. If you want that explained, we'd be happy to do so.
We have another question from Facebook from Michael Stamp. How many dogs do you have in your home on a regular basis? Where do you put them when you are training a new puppy in the house? Well, that number sometimes varies, but I would say on average we typically have about 10 dogs in the house. One of them is snoring on the couch right over there right now. That would be Grandpa Rex. And when we have a new puppy in the house, we still have the same number of dogs in the house. We just typically, like we had mentioned, when we've got older dogs and younger puppies, when we're working on a specific training session, the puppy is out by themselves to be able to not be distracted and to focus, and so the timing is right for that training. But then when it's free time and playtime, they get to interact with the older dogs so that they learn what's proper playing, what's proper behavior in the house and whatnot. And then we typically sleep with about 3, 4, 5 of them out overnight, and the rest of them have to stay crated, and then we rotate. Grandpa is usually out all the time, so the other ones have to rotate around him just because he's 14 and he's earned it. But the puppies don't sleep out yet. Typically, they have to be about a year until we're to that point of trusting them to sleep out on a dog bed or in bed with us overnight.
Good question. Next question is from A. Burks 45. This is not exactly a dog-related question, but more of a get-to-know-us question, and I like those too. What is your beverage of choice after a long day's hunt? Water. No. I would say I am a
water during the hunt, though.
Water during the hunt.
Hydrate.
Absolutely. I'm a big king of beers, Budweiser, Bud Heavy drinker, pork chop in a can. The other side of it is I enjoy bourbon. Some of you have probably caught the wind on that one. And my bourbon of choice would be something down the Buffalo Trace distillery line, Blanton's being top of that list. Kat?
And I, after a long day hunting, typically like cheladas, red beers, if you don't know what a chelada is. Delicious. And there is no substitute between mixing beer and tomato juice. It's not the same. It will do in a pinch, but it's not the same.
Perfect. Good question.
Next question from Nick Vanilla. How many dogs do you guys train a year? What's your cutoff number where you feel they don't get the personalized attention needed? So we get this question actually quite a bit on how many dogs do we train in a year, and I never know. But I can tell you how many dogs we train a month, and we have in the facility a month. Anywhere from 15 to 20 typically. Every once in a while that number goes a little bit over that as we're waiting on dogs getting picked up or getting sent home, and other dogs have come in. But that 15 to 20 number is kind of that golden number of where you mentioned, when they get the personalized attention needed. We feel any more than that, they're not really getting enough quality training time. We have 4 full-time employees currently, as well as Ethan and myself that work with the dogs, and they get handled by all of the people that work for us, repping obedience and just having calm, well-mannered expectations during let-outs and feeding times and things like that. So that's kind of our magic number on how many dogs, and it's not like we work with 15 to 20 new dogs every month. That's the other side of it. That's why I can't say, if I work with 20 dogs a month times 12 months, math, and then that's how many dogs we work with in a year. That's not, I didn't get my calculator out. But some of those dogs stay anywhere from 2 to 4 months of training. Our minimum is 2 months of training. We don't really feel like dogs can accomplish enough in training and be conditioned well enough to those behaviors, those new behaviors that they're learning in less than 2 months of training. And then most of them stay an average of 3 months. But then we get dogs in for more advanced levels of testing or advanced training that stay for 6, 7, 8 months. So that number just varies so much that I can't put a number on it specifically.
Rough to mating, 200 dogs in a year.
Sure.
Give or take 50.
Real specific there, Bob.
Next question, Clayton_APKE. Favorite upland clothing while hunting? Shirts, vests, chaps, pants. Good question. I am a huge Orvis fan. Now everybody says Orvis so expensive. They are expensive, but the way that I like to think about it too is
it's pretty much the last pair of chaps, the last vest, the last coat you're pretty much going to buy.
I literally had an upland shell jacket that lasted 8 years, and that was running.
Wearing it on a daily. It's not just, it hangs up in my closet and I use it 4 times a year.
Yeah.
Not for us.
They take a beating, and, it's good stuff. It fits right. It's a big difference between buying something that is a little less expensive. My recommendation would be to save up the money and go with that. Now, from a shooting shirt standpoint, I wear Orvis's shirts. They have a lightweight shirt, they have a heavier shirt, and it's got some stretch to it as well as breathable, so it's really comfortable. And then I do still, when I wear chaps, I wear Filson chaps, and they sent me a pair. Actually, I bought double tin Filson chaps a long time ago. They fit great. Burned a hole through them. Sent them into Phil in like a couple months.
Not burned like with a lighter or something, like wore a wear spot.
Wore a hole through them in a couple months. Thank you for the clarification.
That's what I'm here for, babe.
After that, sent them in. They said, we'll stand behind this. We'll fix them for you. Sent me another pair. Wore through those in a couple months. I'm in one season, which at that point in time, I was running dogs almost 5 months straight, and 4.5. And
November to March.
Yeah.
Almost 5 months. Yep.
Yep. So, wore those through. So I burned through 2 pair of their double tin chaps in one
season of guiding.
Yep. Sent them back. They said, we've got the thing for you. Sent me these chaps that have 1,000 denier nylon outside of their singleton chaps, and those lasted for years. And I ended up wearing a spot where my legs brushed together, and I sent them in and said, hey, can you fix these? They sent me a brand new pair, which I was upset about because I broke these in and I love them.
Picky, picky, picky.
Not picky. But so Philson has those chaps. I can't find them on their website. I've never seen them in a magazine. I don't know where they came from, but maybe if you call them, they can show you. But I've gotten to the point where chaps are fairly heavy, and I found they have Orvis has a new product this year that's called the
Tough Shell?
Tough Shell? Yeah.
I think it's Tough Shell.
Because they have soft shell and then they have tough shell, which is 100% waterproof, super, super durable. And
very lightweight.
And also lightweight. So, like, there was a time this last year that we had a snowstorm, blizzard, sleeting crap while I was in South Dakota. And I literally had on thermals. So, heavy Under Armour branded thermals. They're number 4, I think is what they call them. And then I had the tough shell, and I had the soft shell, and then the tough shell jacket over top of it. That was all. It was cold as snot, and that cuts the wind. It does everything else. So and I was as comfortable as you can be in a blizzard hunting. But Orvis branded stuff, pretty much straight down the list from clothing for me. Vest as well. I wear the Orvis strap vest.
I also like a lot of Orvis's clothing. There's not a lot of options out there for women upland gear, so I can keep it pretty short. I also really like Prois's upland pants. They had a pair style a few years ago that I really liked. They don't make that style anymore, and they came out with a new style that I also really like. So I've been happy with the Prois pants. And then Orvis's upland shirts I really like. And then I have an Eddie Bauer upland vest that I also love. Again, they don't make that anymore, so good luck finding a vest. I know Prois has a strap vest out. I didn't like it as much. I'm not a big fan of like the super big and bulky, and that was super big and bulky on me at least, which I'm fairly small framed. And then for boots, both Ethan and I have been wearing Keen boots for a long time, but if you've been subscribing to our YouTube channel, thanks, 20,000 subscribers, by the way, again, you would see that we just put out a new video on picking a new pair of boots, and Ethan's gonna try a couple of those and see if some of those will hold up a little bit better and be a good fit. So stay tuned for a updated video on that.
Awesome. Scott H. Pfeiffer, do you have any puppies on the ground? It's a great question. A lot of people are asking, we get a lot of emails, everything else. We're currently taking deposits for 2021. Please email us or call us, whatever you feel most comfortable with, so we can talk more about what the best fit is for you.
Kevin Hine, how do you keep your dog sharp in the off season? What is good training drills for the summer? We've talked about this a few times, but we rode our dogs to help keep them in good shape and conditioned with roding harnesses hooked up to the four-wheeler. It's a very good way to toughen their pads as well, because we're roding them on our gravel driveway. And then also things that we work on in the off summer is anything that they need improvement on. So if we've got young dogs and they need trained retrieves, or they need to be studied up for some hunt tests, that's when we work on those things. Or if we are prepping for some NAVDA testing, we're working on duck searches and water work during the summer when it's nicer out to be spending a lot of time in the water. Other than that, that's about it.
Great question. Next is from Z Cray Cray.
I like it.
Preferred DT Systems e-collar for training. Great question. And to point out, yes, we use all DT Systems products in training. Our go-to is the 1820 currently. It's a model they've had around forever. It's a tank, ironclad, works like a charm. We got 16 levels, vibrate, Nick, continuous stimulation. It's fully rechargeable, waterproof, and the transmitter floats. So the 1820 is our go-to for training currently.
This question from MP Senna was seconded by Ty the Redneck 24, so we definitely have to answer that one. How can I get a dog excited about retrieving bumpers? He's good for the first few, but loses interest very quickly. And then Ty had seconded that with, my dog hasn't had any problems with losing interest in birds, just toys. So, first of all, retrieving is probably the number one thing that gets overdone with dogs. If they start losing interest, why are they going to do it anymore? becomes boring. It's not exciting anymore. So less is typically more in regards to doing retrieving drills. If you go and you throw 20 bumpers every evening and your dog's like, man, this is boring, you need to go, okay, I'm gonna throw 2 bumpers every 2 weeks. And then the dog's gonna be like, when are we gonna play that awesome game again? I wanna do that. So and I threw out numbers.
No, numbers are good, but just on that exact note is to think about yourself. And if you do something every single day, even if it's the most exciting thing that you've ever done, eventually some of that
shine
wears off. But you get to go once a week to go do something, or once a month to go do something. It's a lot more exciting then, and you can look forward to it then.
And something else that you can do to create a little bit of excitement is to have just one specific toy or bumper that's only used for retrieving, that they don't get to play with on a regular basis. So that's an exciting toy and object. But just less is more would be my number one tip.
And then you can gradually build on that. You can go, we like to play a game when we have puppies, and I'll experiment and say, all right, so you've been doing great on this 1-2 retrieves. You're straight out, straight back. We're developing a habit or a behavior here. And then now let's try 5. Okay, you got bored at 4, so we need to still stay at 2 or 3. Okay, let's try 10. Now you did 9. So now we can stay in that 5-6 range, and you can gradually build that up to where you're always ending with the dog still excited for the game.
Yes.
So great questions.
Another question from Instagram that was again seconded, so I feel like we really should hit on that, from Ryan.Villigan. Is there a particular order of behaviors that you train follow from the beginning until you are out hunting? And CDN Baloo said, seconded, I'm curious if you work training habits in a particular order as well.
Absolutely.
If you check out our YouTube channel, we actually have multiple playlists with multiple puppies, Quest, Rogue, even some older series with a puppy named Mac. We have a shorter series with a puppy named Fox, Spriggs series is a lab, but a lot of the beginning stuff, similar basics, I don't know, a lot of puppies. When we have those playlists and we have them in order of how we went through those dogs' trainings.
Step by step.
Very similar order for the most part, but every once in a while we changed things up, and that's just because those dogs had a little bit different personality, were a little slower to mature, a little faster to mature in certain situations, so we may have changed things up a little bit, but that's a really good order to follow along with. Then once your dog is good at this, move on to the next step. People always want to say, well, how old should my dog be when I start doing these things? Well, if you haven't done all of the groundwork, you shouldn't be moving on to the next step. So I can't say, oh, when your dog is exactly 4 months old, you can do a bird and gun intro. Yeah. Well, if you've never done any recall and your puppy's not as bold and confident, you probably shouldn't be throwing a bird in their face.
Even if you have some start to training with your dog, and let's say your dog's 6 to 8 months old, still start at the beginning. And the more your dog knows, the faster they're gonna go through each steps, and then you're gonna get caught up. So
exactly. A lot of the dogs that we get in for training, for example, come in at a minimum of 6 months old. So we don't take dogs in for formal training until they're at least 6 months old. And some of those puppies come in, as we like to call them, a blank slate. They've been part of the family, they've got their house training and potty training habits figured out, and that's about it. They haven't had any clicker training done, they haven't had any collar conditioning done, and they are starting at basically square one after 6 months old, and they start and go through everything just like a puppy would at 8 weeks.
Yeah. Okay, great question. Next, we've got D Stormont 17. How do you deal with a dog that has a hard mouth even after formal trained retrieve? This is a question I wanted to touch on. I need more information, but I'm also going to say, if you still have a hard mouth after, we've got a hole somewhere in the process that we need to work through. Now, I need to know more information about when the dog's being hard mouth, what kind of birds, what size of birds, is it all birds, is it all bumpers and birds?
Is it only when you're shooting birds for them, or is it only water retrieves?
When and where and how this is happening, and then we can try and give some tips. Worst case scenario, this may be one that we need to see first person what's going on, but throw that in the comments, throw it in the comments. That'd be the best place for it, and then we can try and help you. Next question, CADA Walton. this weekend is Pheasant Fest in Minneapolis, which by the time this is posted, it'll be last weekend. But have you ever been and participated in the Pheasant Fest? Yes, actually, we've been the last 4 or 5 years in a row. And this year, we somehow missed it by a day.
I did terrible planning and I planned a vacation instead, and then realized on the calendar it was the same time as Pheasant Fest, and I was like, Caribbean cruise, Pheasant Fest in Minneapolis, brr, and said, okay, we're going on a cruise next year.
But we'll be there next year, so.
Another question is from Colt45 Raps. My 8-month-old English setter will retrieve bumpers to hand every time, but when it comes to retrieving a bird, he picks it up with a soft mouth and doesn't always bring it back to me. How can I get him to retrieve the bird to me the way he retrieves bumpers back to my hand? So there's always little tricks and tips and things that you can do with your puppy, including putting wings on a bumper if your puppy does retrieve bumpers really well, adding a few feathers, adding a few more feathers, adding a few more feathers until it's this massive feather bumper thing, so that they get better about picking it up with feathers in their mouth. Also, just more experience and getting comfortable with those birds, starting with a frozen bird as well, so it's more firm and bumper shaped instead of a floppy, freshly killed dead bird, or even a still flapping live-ish bird, which can be intimidating. But ultimately, if your dog's still sloppy about retrieving birds, we recommend doing a trained retrieve, which really fixes any of those holes in retrieving, creates a nice, solid, finished, polished retrieve to hand with bumpers, birds, anything like that. But you definitely want your dog to be mature enough to start that process, and usually our golden number is around a year. Sometimes you can start a little bit younger if your dog's mentally mature and really ready for that and bold and confident, but dogs mature at different rates, so you kind of have to judge that for yourself.
Yeah, that's great. Great answer.
I wish we could have gotten to more. I hate not being able to answer all of your guys' questions because they're always all so good. So
very good.
Remember, ask us more next week and we will try and get to as many as we can.
Thanks guys again for the questions. I'm the guy with the pink gun.
I'm Kat the dog trainer.
And we will see you next week.